Hey, what's up, and welcome to this episode of EST, the podcast for established church leaders by established church leaders. My name is Josh.
My name is Sam, and it makes me happy that Boyd Pelley is on this episode.
Does it?
It
Well, I'm glad you're
does.
happy.
So, all right. Welcome
Happy
back, Boyd.
Sam.
Glad to have you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate being with you. You guys are awesome.
Boyd has been, and his company have been Churchteams, has been a longtime sponsor of the show. But what I love about him is just the level of service, his love for the local church. He knows the local church. He's served the local church. And then he started this company to specifically take things off the plate of pastors. And that's what your technology does.
Yeah.
There's a lot there that we could talk about. And we're actually going to talk today about what most pastors miss with technology. But let me remind you, Boyd is being very generous to all of you with this free trial. So go to est.church to go get that free trial and reach out to him. Please, on this episode, we can say, tell Boyd that Boyd sent you.
I love it. It's fun. I get lots of people who fill that out and respond. And
Awesome.
we have I always love jumping on a Meet the Software webinar with those guys. We always have fun talking
Awesome.
about you guys. And it's always good.
Well, and Boyd, your company also produces very good content. So if anything, go to Churchteams and just sign up for their newsletter. I read their newsletter. Sometimes I get ideas for my own content from their newsletter. And you won't regret that. So certainly get the free trial, but you should also just go sign up and get on their email list because stuff's always, they do great stuff. So thank you, Boyd, for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. That blog, I really do just try to write to anybody who's interested in that crossover between ministry and technology, how those two work together. So not just Churchteams people.
So I think it's fair to say that pastors are not known for being the most tech savvy. Some are, but many aren't. And that's not to say you can't learn. That's not to say that you must be tech savvy in order to be a pastor. But in today's technology-driven culture and society, these are things that are very important. So Boyd's joining us today just to talk about, hey, what do pastors typically miss when it comes to technology? Boyd, what's the top of the list?
Well, I think kind of the introductory first part is some pastors, I would say it this way. People miss the role of technology. Some people obsess over it like a technology is good, the silver bullet that's going to save everybody in my community if I do it right. Okay. And some of them are fearful of it. I don't believe in that iPhone, this technology is not going to be here to stay. It'll go away pretty soon, that kind of thing. And so you've got both extremes. And so I think the perspective is it's just a tool, right? It's just a tool to help us do. It's a tool that we use in 2024. It's different than the tools we used in 2000 or 1980 or whatever, right? So I think that's the first thing that I think about is get a sober mindedness. There's this whole thing we were talking a little bit about a minute ago about technology adoption. And there's this rave of people that get all excited about a technology, and then it peaks, and then it has its season, and then it goes down to a real lower level, and it never quite gets back up. Well, it's at that point when it gets out of the bottom and starts coming back up that the technology kind of finds its place, and we just use it on a regular basis. I mean, most of us, that's kind of where we're at with at least the basic functionality of iPhone texting, something like that. We're not as enamored at texting as we did the first season of American Idol. We've found a place in the world for texting. So,
yeah, man, I remember my first quasi smartphone wasn't quite the way we think of smartphones now, but it was BlackBerry,
right?
And it did email, and I can message people. And I, in the little light would blink, when you got a notification. Yeah. Can you imagine if phones, like as many notifications as we get now, it's all these push notifications, like the light.
Oh
Well, it would
my
just always be
gosh.
blinking, right?
It would be. You're right. Right.
Yeah.
But we learned to use it, right? It was out of that, something new. People learned the things that people liked about it, they didn't like about it, the usability of it. So it just finds its place as a regular tool, and we just have to be open about it, not fearful of it, not too obsessed with it either way. And you know, a lot of times we think about those older folks. That's kind of who we're thinking in the back of our mind sometimes, that aren't as excited about adopting it. One of the best things, maybe we shared it here, that I've thought about was a pastor who's intentionally coming alongside to do a ministry to help some of their folks just understand technology. Could be an incredible way a pastor could build a little ministry just to love and serve the folks in their church on even just some basic uses of it. So,
And that's a great idea of just get a group of people together that don't know technology, whatever their age is, and just coach them and teach them in a session of, hey, when the young people are saying this, here's what they mean. The acronyms are what get me now. And the texting acronyms, I have to go, my teenage daughter, I have to go to her and say, all right, what, I'm pretty savvy. I'm pretty up to speed on some of this stuff. But I even have to ask her sometimes, like I'm getting to be that old guy. And I embrace it.
So do you ever Google that? Just sort of the
yeah, I do. And sometimes I regret it. Sometimes I've just gotten to where I just think I don't need to Google this, because sometimes the results produce something that I'm like, I did not need to know this or see this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do agree that it's not just an older demographic of pastors that are missing on the technology. I think all of us get to a stage. I'm thinking in particular a couple of millennial pastors that have just gotten to a phase where it's like, this is the way I prep sermons, this is the way I communicate, schedule my meetings, those sort of things. And as a person who likes to be on, I'm an early adopter, whatever the technology is, I just like to go ahead and try it, make myself use it, and keep what I keep. I'm talking to guys all the time, pastors all the time, and I'll talk about things like, I have a Calendly booking service that just kind of books my appointments for me. And I talk to guys and they're like, I don't know. I like doing it this way. And I'm like, well, just try it. It's a lot easier. Or even all the arguments I always get in about ebooks. And I've got some guys that just like to smell books for some reason. And so I think we all get to a place where we get comfortable with the way it is. Look at all those wasted space he has there. And then we just don't try anything else out. So, I'm with you. I think you're right. The first thing is just realizing it's a tool. And if your tool is outdated or if it's not working any longer, maybe you should try out some new tools and just kind of ask yourself, I bet there's a better way to do this.
Yeah. Hey, Boyd, with church teams, what's the aha moment for a lot of your clients? So people, they call you, hey, EST sent us, interested in your software, and you tell them it does this. What is the one thing, maybe more than one thing, but what's the one thing where people go, really? Oh, that's awesome. I wish I'd known this 5 years ago. What's the aha when it comes to church teams?
Yeah, if you really want to know, if I was going to pick one thing to use a CRM like Churchteams or church management software, Churchteams get staff to use on a consistent basis, that once they do, it's like, wow. Now, there's several other wow factors that make things more efficient and schedule things out and stuff like that. But the one just practical one for most pastors is to begin to use their CRM, their church management software, to track conversations. So it's a lot like a business would do to adopt something like a Salesforce or a HubSpot to track those conversations with potential customers and clients. And you're tracking them from, a prospect point through some sales processes along the way. You have somebody having a conversation with them and then somebody onboarding them. So what we do, and then somebody from the onboard, they can go back and look at the support history of it and see all of that. Well, that is all these conversations that different people on the team have had with them. And yet when the next person comes up, they can get in there, they can see that list of conversations and have a much better feel where somebody's at to be able to serve them better. And I think when a church staff, and really this is one of my other things, is for helping the staff and especially the pastor to learn to use it themselves and to see it as a collaborative tool to build work as a team together like that. So when a pastor uses that, and just think about the conversation we have with somebody that first time they came on a Sunday and we discovered they just moved here from California and they live in somebody's neighborhood and they work at a certain place, and you think of a connection, you just throw that in there. And then the cool thing about that is you can set a follow-up date. Like if I really happen to connect with somebody at church over this and I throw it in there, do a quick little summary, say, their kid is graduating from high school next week. I want to call, I want to send them a text and check back, see how that went, just because I care. So I take 2 seconds. You can even talk the text in there. You don't have to thumb it into the software. And then it sends you a little reminder on May 18th or whenever, the day after, to do that. Go, oh yeah, I wanted to do that. It takes you all of 10 seconds to be able to tell that person that you really loved and cared for them, or to share that with somebody else. That would be, because ministry at its heart's relational, right? And it's got church management has a million other functions that have to do with integrity, like with finances and security, and efficiencies, like with volunteers and workflows and communication stuff. But it's that relational component, I think, is, if I was going to pick one, I'd pick that one.
All right. So I want this, let's let this sit for just a second, because I think this is a huge deal that a lot of people don't even know what software can do, particularly church teams. So let's say you're a mid-sized church or a smaller church, and you just don't have a support staff. Like, maybe you have one assistant or a part-time assistant. This is your entire support team. And all that you have to do is just make a few keystrokes, and you've got reminders. And not only that, I mean, imagine, let's say you use this software for 5 or 6 or 10 years. You've got to transition to another pastor. That other pastor can then get in there, as you said, and see all of these previous things that have happened. You're setting yourself up for success, and you're setting the next person up for success, because they can look back and say, oh, 3 years ago, they lost, they lost a child
or something.
Yeah, they lost a spouse. Or they moved here from California, and this was the reason. And so you can have like a knowledgeable conversation. This is your support staff, and this is your ability to shepherd well. And I think that's something that a lot of people miss with technology. A lot of pastors miss is this. It's a relationship management software system. That's what it is. And it's so important, because we forget stuff. I forget stuff. And then people remind you, and you're like, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then you feel kind of bad. But what if you approach them with the initiative? Hey, I made a note about this a while back, just following up. Now you sound like the reason you do this is because you really care. It helps you be a more genuine pastor. This is technology helping you be genuine. That's one thing I love about what you do, Boyd.
Oh, it's so important. Isn't that why we do ministry anyway? I mean, we're just loving on people and pastoring and shepherding and caring for them. So yeah. The obstacle on that for a lot of people is they've got some other way that they do that. The youth pastor likes to keep a to-do list in Google. Somebody else wants sticky notes. The other pastor just has something on the calendar somewhere that they use to try to remind them of those things. So they've got some habits already to where they're trying to manage those as best they can. And it's being willing to try a new habit as an individual, something that's going to prompt you, take the initiative, because the initiative, it's going to prompt you by sending you an email or a text, and you live there every day. So it's not, you don't even have to open the app to see it. It will send you and do the reminder for you. So it gets out in front of your face and helps that, much less the collaborative part.
Yeah, the collaboration's huge. If you're going to a meeting, I know I've gone to meetings before, and the larger the church, what you're talking about there, Sam, is we're trying to keep relationships going with far outside the normal amount of relationships. And the expectation is that it's going to be at a level of intimacy that is like they're just your best friend. So you remember their anniversary and that they had surgery and all that sort of stuff, but you're trying to do that for 150 people, 300 people, 1,000 people. And, sociologists say that we only really have the capacity to do that for like 5 people, maybe 12. So it's really this kind of inability. But I've sat down, I've had a meeting scheduled with me before as pastor. I know the time and I know where I'm meeting them. I sit down, pull open a church management software. I see their face and I read through notes that not only have I made over the years, but other ministers have made over the years. And I start to, oh, yeah, I know what's going on here. I get a grasp of what's happening, where the spouse is, the children, stuff like that. Then I can enter into a conversation without saying something or tripping over myself by not knowing some basic information, because it's all in one space. The colleague or something that may be using stick-it notes, I think all those systems are fine if they work for you. However, there's not a collaboration on that, and it's not all in one place. Like Sam's library, you can't search it all in one shop like you can with my library. You have to go to all these different places.
I only showed you half of it. There's the other half.
Yeah. So see, that's just so inefficient. So inefficient.
For those of you who are listening and not watching on YouTube, I still like print books, and I've surrounded myself with my library.
Horrible.
But with Boyd software, all the library of all of your people, all of that knowledge is housed in one place, easily accessible, searchable. That's right. And what pastors miss with technology is you don't have to miss with your people. That's how I'd sum it up. You don't miss with your people. You can have this platform that helps you be a better pastor. And sometimes when we talk about technology, we get scared. Like AI, it's like, that's the new mark of the beast, right? I mean, this is going to usher in the era of the Antichrist. And there is a lot about AI that's scary. I'll be straight about that. There's some things I'm like, man, I don't know that I want people tuning in to that kind of stuff. Hey, Boyd, talk a little bit about security. The how, when it comes to all this information in one place, the one fear that I might have if I'm a pastor is, well, how secure is it? Like, what do you do at church teams to ensure security?
Oh my gosh, there's so many things you have to do. Some of it you don't even tell people publicly because you don't want it to be out there, that you have to do to maintain security. Okay, the biggest hit part is obviously going to be financials. And, because that's what somebody might want to come after, would be something in that area. So almost every church management system, they don't even bother keeping track of credit cards and things of that nature. There are even higher level security area partners that's all they do, that give a ton of time and effort. So on the financial side, that's what happens. And then, but every software I know will section off the financial. So you only have certain levels, only certain people can be given access to be able to see, people's finances, things like that. You're able to control what information you want people to see. Do you want a directory, an online directory? If so, who do you want to include in it? And who do you want to be able to access it? And what information do you want? Do you want them to see kids' information? Do you want them not to see kids' information? So there's a lot of flexibility that we built into the software to be able to control, because different environments are a little bit different in the degree of security. Letting somebody know, the kids' names, for instance, some places that's fine. Others, they just want adults if they're going to do. And a whole lot of churches nowadays don't even bother with a directory. Depending on where they're at. So take that one, for instance, the login credentials is a really, big deal. We have to watch and manage and make sure that people, have the unique things for logging in themselves. So you have to be alert to all of that. The interesting thing about church management software, the biggest issue that you'll find is phishing schemes. You guys probably had them on you, where somebody figures out some way to get a hold of somebody's email and make up a false Gmail or Yahoo email that sounds like it's you, Sam, but it missed, 2 or 3 different numbers or something like that, and then they send it to people that they've found. They fished. Usually, it's from somebody's actually email contents. It's not. We've never seen it come from church teams. Knock on wood, so far, right?
Well, and
that everybody thinks it does, and so, but that's the biggest one.
I'm sure you field those phone calls all the time.
And you're always nervous. Everyone's the most important one you ever had. So,
yeah. And I'm glad you take that posture of caring for every single one of the people that you serve. Yeah. So one of the things that I've found that people do is they'll go to your website. Ours is westb.org, westb.org. They'll go to the staff page, and they'll see, oh, Kent is the student pastor. Sam is the lead pastor. So I'm going to email Kent at westb.org, even though we don't have emails on the website. They can figure out what the email might be. Yeah. They'll fish. That's the definition of phishing. And Kent will get an email from Sam saying, hey, I need you to do XYZ. Typically it's, go buy gift cards or something like that. That actually happened last week here at West Bradenton.
Really? Yeah.
And it happens so much that the rest of the staff knows, but Kent's newer. And so he's like, and ironically, what's wild is I had just sent him a gift card for something. And so he's asking me about gift cards. I'm like, yeah, man, that's me. What are you talking about? And then I finally figured out, oh, that's that phishing scheme. So that has nothing to do with you, of course. That's just people.
But it's
phishing.
It's a security thing that they do. And so one of the things that I think it's not bad for churches to think about, and some have done it, is actually even a part of new members class or some other environment like that, to share just some general guidelines. Like, if we give you access to the app, here's the expectations of that. You're not going to use that as your multi-marketing list. You can't use it for that. Also, we're never, ever going to email you asking you for anything. There's phishing things out there. Anytime you see anything that's financial like that, you'll know it's fake. So even if it's just kind of in a regular rhythm, like a new members class or something like that, I've seen a few folks that have done it that way. I lead the new members class at our church. I think I need to add that next time.
There you go. No, that's a really good tip. The time to introduce the technology that you use is at the membership class, and to let people know, here's how we contact you. Here's what these contacts look like. If you ever get something that seems off, please, one, don't click the link, don't send the money, call the church office or let us know. I think that's an excellent tip. Josh,
and I think, I just one last thought on that one for Josh. And I think people really respect it. The other one that's sort of related that I was thinking about is saying, when you give us your mobile number, when you give us your email address, here's how we use it. And just by a sentence or two like that will help them feel like you're aware of that.
Yeah, that's really good. Josh, you ever been the victim of a phishing scheme?
Attempted victim. I've never had anybody fall for it. And for similar reasons. It just seems so odd, and I'm not going to be asking people for those sort of things. I do think it's a good practice. Anytime that happens, I love when pastors jump on social media and it's like, hey, this happened. And it just kind of blasts out everybody so that everybody knows, because they'll do, I've seen it even colleague to colleague. Somehow somebody will message me from Sam Rayner and it's like, hey, I need, this kind of stuff. So I've seen that. I think to the point of the show, though, one of the things that pastors often miss about technology is when things are new and you don't understand them, they seem unsafe. However, the things that are long established, the practices that we're doing now, are not any more safe and are often more unsafe. for instance, I know I can't imagine somebody kind of fighting us on this at this point, but I do remember earlier on in my ministry talking to pastors who did not want to move membership records to digital format. They didn't want to put it on spreadsheets. And even at that point, spreadsheets were already outdated, but they didn't want to use a church management software. They liked paper. And they were like, well, what if it gets hacked and we lose all that information? And I'm like, that's so unlikely with backups. What is likely, because it happens all the time, is the folder gets lost or y'all have a fire. How many times do we hear about churches catching on fire? I mean, that happens much more often than the digital membership of our church going away. And so there's just this assumption that if you're a pastor and you're listening to this, maybe you're not as familiar with technology. Anytime you start to feel like the new is unsafe, that could be true. Don't ignore that, but don't assume that the old is safe. Those two are they're not synonyms. And so I think that's one of the things that a lot of people, but pastors in particular, we miss about technology. And I think it just has something to do with the reality that we delve in and we constantly deal with the ancient. All right. We're constantly talking and preaching and about an ancient faith and an old book and a way of doing things. We like history. We think in these terms. And so these ideas, like brand new things, sound like they're towards the right-hand side of the book. That's all Mark of the Beastie stuff. So that's why we kind of get confused with what is new.
The right-hand side of the book. I was wondering.
I like that.
That side gets crazy. We like to deal in the left-hand side.
Okay,
That's
I get it. I get it. Hey, thank you, Boyd, for joining us on the show today. EST.church is where you can go get the offer. Boyd, how may someone reach out to you? Social media? I mean, is there any way that you'd want people to reach out to you?
Really, the easiest is just Boyd, B-O-Y-D, at churchteams.com. And what I love, if you go to our website, churchteams.com, every week I do a live webinar, and I do it so I can interact with folks and do that kind of thing. But what it does is it's kind of a high level understanding how technology is used from everything from outreach to assimilation to full engagement on making disciples and how we can all work together. So even if it's just a matter of seeing some of the things we've learned around technology across the whole process of what we're doing to try to reach people, it's useful. So I'd invite anyone to come and join me for that.
And those are free. Those webinars are free.
Those are free. Just come and jump on. Yeah.
There you go, guys. For more free content from Boyd Pelley and the team at Churchteams. Again, you can also go check out the offer at est.church. It'll take you to a landing page and a form that you can fill out. So, Josh, tell the good people we'll see them next week.
Hey, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks so much for listening. Make sure you rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Also, make sure that you're engaged on Twitter. We would love to hear through the technology of Twitter or X. I'm not calling it that because that's the new word and I like the old word. So we're going to go with Twitter, and just make sure you engage and tell us what sort of technology you're using in your church leadership. We'll catch you next week.